today we are going to go on a walking tour to discuss the largest tsunami that time forgot. Now it is a little bit windy on the bridge, but I am going to try and find us an area where it is not too windy whilst I tell you all some of the statistics about the tsunami that happened as a result of the Storegga slide and across this area, which is Doggerbank, which is what I discussed in the earthquake video around a week ago. I'll link that video at the end of this one. So just across the sea there is Norway, and back in around 6000 BC, so 8,000 years ago, there was a huge landslide called the Storegga slide, and it actually spanned 180 miles. A huge shelf of Norway actually fell and slid into the sea. This caused a huge tsunami to ensue across this area here, which is now called Doggerbank, but it actually used to be Doggerland, and it was a huge area between here and Norway, which was actually all marshlands, but because of the Storegga slide and rising water levels, this is now what has made up the North Sea. Even now to this day, some parts are so shallow that the ferry has to go a particular route. But let's talk about some more statistics of the Storegga slide. The Storegga slide was actually quite a monumental tsunami at the time, because 8,200 years ago, at the time it happened, obviously populations were smaller, but it actually wiped out a quarter of the population of Britain. And around that time, it was around the time that the Starkar Mesolithic settlement was here in Scarborough along the east coast of Britain. And if you're interested in that, by all means have a look at the oldest museum video that I also did, as it shows some of the details about the Starkar population. But also it wasn't just Britain that was affected, it was also huge parts of Europe that were engulfed by this tsunami. So let's just go and have a look at the water that is now here due to the huge tsunami and the Storegga slide. So there were actually 3 Storegga slides, and some of these also involved submarine landslides. They moved a whopping total volume of 3,500 kilometres squared worth of debris. And in fact, it actually caused what is known as a paleo tsunami within the North Atlantic Ocean. And rather appropriately, if I move my camera just this way, you can see the harbour in our town in the background. And actually what a lot of people don't know is that tsunami is just the Japanese word for harbour wave, as in a wave that is so large that it comes in and destroys harbours, amongst other things. So just how big was this wave that destroyed a quarter of the population of Mesolithic Britain at the time? Well, apparently it actually reached 20 to 25 metres in height, which I'll do the foot, but I think it's around 50 to 60 feet high, which is just astronomical. I mean, let me show you the coast as we speak. So this lamppost that is actually behind me, that is maybe 10 feet, so 5 of them high. It must have been quite a scary thing to see, especially for the Mesolithic population at the time. Now, why am I calling this the largest tsunami that time forgot? Well, because I think that a lot of us perhaps don't really know about this huge tsunami that happened 8,000 years ago. It's definitely probably one of the only tsunamis to ever hit Britain, but it's also large in terms of how many people perished. But it may actually prompt you to ask, well, what is the largest tsunami ever? Well, the largest tsunami ever actually happened out at sea off of Latoya Bay in Alaska. and that was the hugest tsunami in terms of wave size, as the wave apparently was a huge 535 meters tall, which is just astronomical. But luckily, because it was out at sea, nobody actually perished, unlike the Strega slide tsunami of 8,200 years ago. The Strega slide is also known as the largest continental slope margin failure ever. While we're talking about slopes, just look at that huge Victorian tramway slope in the background. Now we're heading down, for those of you who didn't see Doggerbank earthquake video, to just show you what the flats look like now, whereas at one time before the Strega slide and rising sea levels that caused the North Sea, to give you an idea of what it looked like. Long before the Victorian beach huts were here. For anybody who is also interested in the geology of the area, there are lots of interesting rocks in the background. I did actually do a video about this coast, as it is also known to be the dinosaur coast, and it was actually described as an El Dorado for fossils, and I did actually show many of the fossils discovered back in the museum video that I did, and also the video on actual mining fossils in the area. I showed all the geological patterns and also where some of the fossils are actually still intact in the rocks along this coast. But this is now the promenade slash sea wall that covers the edge of the North Sea along the east coast of England, and it's just like almost unimaginable to picture this huge 25-metre wave coming in. But this is where the Mesolithic settlers would have been, which we know from fossils found in the area, and they will have been fishing and then just seen this huge wave coming in. So some of you may be wondering, like indeed I was myself because I live in the area, could something like the Strega slide ever happen again? You know, will one day I be laying in my bed, which is perhaps only about 40 metres from the sea, and will I look out of my window to see a huge wave hurtling towards me? Well, apparently experts have said that it is actually almost impossible, because it has to be a period after an ice age, such as a glaciation, that causes something like the Strega slide to happen. So I think nothing like a tsunami, at least on the northeast coast of England, will ever happen again. However, that's only due to it being caused by something like a slide. It could quite possibly happen via an earthquake, like I discussed in the biggest earthquake ever, as in ever to happen in Britain video that I did a short while ago, because right off the coast here we actually have one of the few fault lines that is near the UK. So actually along where Doggerbank is, just over there, which used to be Doggerland, sort of 60 miles off this coast, it was the epicentre of this earthquake that I discussed a while back, and it could very well cause a tsunami, because obviously earthquakes, landslides are the things that can cause tsunamis. So we right here would actually be the closest hit by something like that. And in fact, in a portion of the earthquake video, I did talk to you all and show you all a little bit of footage about a landslide that happened here actually back in 1993, and it was this huge portion of land that actually slid down into the sea, and there was reason to believe that partially some of this original movement might have happened back in the time of the earlier earthquake in 1931 that I discussed in the video. But this huge landslide that happened in 1993 was actually quite shocking at the time, as it was a huge portion of the shelf of this coast So it just goes to show what kind of damage a landslide can really do. Now it is going to get a little bit windy because obviously we're in the winter, I'm on the coast by the sea, but if I just move around for you all here, this is actually a star map which I did do another video about, but I am just trying to focus on this land coming down for you all. If you want to see a better bird's eye view of what actually the landmass looked like when it initially fell, by all means go back to the earthquake video. I will link it at the end of this video because the two kind of go together. But this huge bit of land coming down that has now got grass on it and things was the original embankment, which did quite a lot of damage back in 1993. You can see some of the scars and what at one time was the marshland. It just seems unbelievable now to imagine that most of this North Sea, like in the quantity that it is in how it comes round Norway and round to our English Channel, maybe might not even be here without the Storegga slide and the huge shift in volume of water because of it. I mean, imagine now if we were still connected to places like Denmark and Norway via these marshy flats and there was no sea at all, and England wasn't even an island. It would be quite different. Something I find quite unimaginable almost. Also, even more unimaginable is the fact that a lot of people don't even know about it, and it was definitely the largest tsunami that time forgot.